I never thought that watching my only son get married would end with his fiancée screaming at me to leave my own venue. "You're not welcome here," Melissa hissed, her manicured finger jabbing the air. "You've done enough damage. Leave." The laughter and music stopped. Every pair of eyes turned to me. I froze, clutching my purse, the same one carrying the $50,000 check I wrote to fund this entire wedding. My son, my baby boy, just stood there staring at the floor. Not a word, not even a glance. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Don't cry, don't give her the satisfaction. But they didn't know that I wasn't just their ATM. I was someone who could determine their future. As I walked out past rows of guests pretending not to stare, I felt something break inside me. I paid for everything: the dress, the flowers, the venue, and they tossed me out like garbage. I sat in my car in the darkened parking lot, hands trembling on the steering wheel of my 2015 Lexus, the car I kept repairing instead of replacing so Alex could have his college tuition paid in full. The memory of Melissa's voice, sharp and dripping with venom, replayed in my mind like a cruel loop. "You're not welcome here." The worst part wasn't Melissa. It was Alex, my son. He had stood there like a stranger, his eyes fixed on the floor, too cowardly to even defend me. For 30 years, I had been Jane Miller, the woman who sacrificed everything for her son. After Mark left when Alex was just 7, I worked 60-hour weeks as a financial director to give my boy everything. I skipped vacations so he could attend summer camps. I passed on dating opportunities to focus on being both mother and father to him. I even helped him secure his job at Westlake Properties, where I had connections from my years in financial services. "Mom, we'll pay you back for half once I get my promotion," Alex had promised as we toured the waterfront venue that cost more than my first house. His arm was wrapped around Melissa, her diamond engagement ring catching the light. I'd smiled and nodded, just happy to see my son so in love. Now, sitting alone in my car, that memory felt like ash in my mouth. My phone buzzed in the cup holder, lighting up with text after text. "Why did you leave? Are you okay?" "Don't make a scene, Jane." Not one message asking what they had done to me, not one person taking my side. A sob rose in my throat, but I swallowed it down. I wouldn't cry for them. Not tonight. Instead, I let the anger rise and harden inside me, solid and cold like steel. They thought I was weak because I stayed quiet. They thought they could humiliate me and still enjoy the fantasy wedding I'd built for them. No more. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and pulled up the email from the wedding planner. My thumb hovered over her contact for a moment. Then I took a deep breath and hit call. The line rang twice before she answered, her voice chipper and professional. "Hi, Jane. I was just going over the final details for tomorrow. I'm canceling everything," I said flatly. There was a pause on the other end. I'm sorry. I said cancel everything. The venue, the vendors, the payments. I'm pulling out. "Jane, the contracts are under your name, but are you sure this is so last minute?" "I'm sure," I replied, my voice steadier now. "If I'm not welcome at this wedding, neither is my money." By the time I pulled into my driveway, my hands had stopped shaking. The anger had settled into something sharper: determination. I sat at my kitchen table, flipping through the neatly labeled wedding binder I'd created for Alex and Melissa. Each tab was a reminder of my generosity. Venue, caterer, florist, photographer, entertainment. They had contributed nothing but Pinterest boards and entitled attitudes. Every invoice, every contract, every signature, mine. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. Jane Miller staring back at me, 62 years old, silver-streaked hair still in the elegant updo I'd paid $120 for at the salon this morning. lines around my eyes that spoke of years of worry and care. A woman who had always put everyone else first. Not anymore. I picked up the phone and started dialing. First, the venue. Hi, this is Jane Miller. I'm the contract holder for the Miller Whitaker wedding tomorrow. Yes, of course. We're all set to. I'm canceling, effective immediately. There was a long pause. Ma'am, are you sure there's a substantial cancellation fee? That won't be necessary. I'm the one who paid the deposit, and I'm within my rights under the contract. Silence. Then a cautious reply. Understood. We'll process the termination. Click. Next, the florist. The same routine. Then the caterer. Then the photographer. Each time I felt my spine straighten a little more. With every call, the picture became clearer. Alex and Melissa hadn't just wanted my support. They had expected it, demanded it. The wedding wasn't theirs. It was mine, paid for, arranged, and held together by me. And if I wasn't welcome, neither was my money. As I ended the last call with the band, I allowed myself a small, cold smile. Tomorrow, they'd wake up thinking they were heading into their fairy tale. But there would be no flowers, no food, no music, nothing but the wreckage of their own entitlement. The house was silent except for the soft click of my mouse as I scrolled through my emails. I opened the PDF attachments one by one. Venue agreement, catering contract, band writer. Each line carried my name, my signature, my billing address. They loved my money more than me. I thought bitterly. Weeks ago, Melissa had insisted, "We'll pay you back for half, I promise, as soon as Alex gets his promotion." That promise felt laughable now. I clicked open the florist contract and scanned the fine print. Cancellation by the client results in a forfeiture of the deposit. But I was the client, not Melissa, not Alex. A surge of vindication coursed through me. They couldn't call these vendors and magically reinstate anything. Without me, they were helpless. The sound of a car door slamming outside pulled me from my thoughts. I peeked through the blinds. Alex's car. My chest tightened as I watched him stride toward my front door. He moved with an urgency I hadn't seen in years. A sharp knock echoed through the house. "Mom, open up. We need to talk." I didn't move. Another knock, louder this time. "Mom, I know you're in there." I sat perfectly still, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Let him sweat. Let him wonder if I'd answer. He didn't get to demand my time anymore. After a minute, I heard his voice, angrier now, muffled through the door. "You can't do this. It's our wedding." My lips curled into the faintest smile. "No, Alex," I whispered to myself. "It wasn't yours. It never was." Looking back, the signs had always been there. I just chose to ignore them. The first time I met Melissa Fletcher, she'd given me a quick, assessing glance that made me feel like I was being priced rather than greeted. At 29, she was strikingly beautiful with her sleek blonde bob and designer clothes. She worked in PR for a luxury real estate company, ironically, a competitor to the firm where Alex had just started as a junior associate. "It's so nice to finally meet you," she'd said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Alex has told me so much about his amazing mom." I'd been flattered, eager to be liked by the woman my son loved. I'd invited them to dinner at my modest three-bedroom home in the suburbs, the same house where I'd raised Alex after Mark left. Melissa had glanced around with barely concealed disappointment. "Oh, it's cozy," she'd said, running a manicured finger along my 15-year-old dining table. When I served the pot roast I'd spent hours preparing, Alex's childhood favorite, she'd taken 2 small bites before claiming she was watching her carbs. Alex hadn't noticed. Or, if he had, he didn't care. He was too entranced by her beauty, her confidence, her social connections. Within 6 months, They were engaged, and suddenly I was thrust into wedding planning with a woman who viewed my budget-conscious suggestions as personal affronts. Jane, don't you think Alex deserves the best on his special day? She'd ask whenever I questioned the need for hand-calligraphed place cards or imported orchids. We only plan to do this once. What kind of wedding did you have? Jane, she'd asked me once, her voice syrupy sweet, small. I'd answered truthfully. Mark and I were young. We had a simple ceremony at my parents' church. What mattered was that we loved each other. She'd smiled that perfect smile. How quaint. But times have changed, haven't they? And Alex, my sweet boy, who once made me Mother's Day cards with glitter and dried pasta, he'd transformed into someone I barely recognized. Someone who checked his phone when I was mid-sentence. Someone who rolled his eyes when I mentioned the cost of things. Someone who always took Melissa's side, even when she was clearly wrong. Mom, stop being so old-fashioned, he'd say. Or worse, Mom, don't embarrass me. The wedding planning had been 9 months of subtle humiliations. Melissa forgetting to include me in dress shopping until I asked directly. Alex dismissing my suggestion for their first dance song because it was too dated. The engagement party where I'd been seated at a table with distant relatives while Melissa's college friends occupied the place of honor. I should have seen it coming. The rehearsal dinner was just the final act in a play that had been running for months. As I sat in my kitchen, ignoring Alex's pounding on my door, my phone buzzed with a text. Mom, please, you're overreacting. Melissa was just stressed. Don't ruin everything. I stared at the message, my vision blurring. Overreacting. After being publicly humiliated and thrown out of an event I had funded entirely, my phone buzzed again. Everyone's asking where you went. Just come back and we can fix this. Fix this, as if I were the problem that needed solving. Another text. This one from a number I didn't recognize. Jane, this is Lisa, Melissa's maid of honor. Melissa's really upset, and Alex is worried sick. Whatever happened, can't you put it aside for your son's big day? The audacity took my breath away. I turned my phone face down on the table. The knocking eventually stopped. I heard Alex's car start and drive away. But the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was charged with the kind of quiet that comes before a storm. I picked up my phone again and scrolled through older messages, seeing them with new eyes. Mom, can you increase the flower budget? Melissa's heart is set on peonies. Mom, the photographer we liked is available but needs a 50% deposit by tomorrow. Mom, Melissa's parents can't contribute as much as they thought. Can you cover the difference? Money. It always came back to money. My retirement savings, which I'd been carefully growing for decades, had been steadily depleted by this wedding. I'd rationalized each expense. It's for Alex. It's a one-time celebration. I want him to be happy. But now I wondered, did Alex even see me as a person anymore? Or was I just a checkbook with legs? The wedding binder on my table seemed to mock me. I flipped through it again, this time with a critical eye. Venue 15,000, catering 12,000, dress 6 and 500, flowers $4 800, photography 3 500, band 4 200, and countless smaller expenses that had somehow added up to over $50,000. For what? For a day when I wasn't even welcome, I closed the binder with a decisive snap. The Jane who had written all those checks, the accommodating, eager-to-please Jane, was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who refused to be used any longer. The next morning, I woke to a barrage of missed calls and texts. I ignored them all and made myself a cup of coffee, sitting at my kitchen table with the morning light streaming through the windows. For the first time in months, I felt strangely at peace. The decision had been made. There was no going back. My doorbell rang at precisely 9:07 a.m. I knew it would be Alex again, and this time I decided to face him. I took my time walking to the door, smoothing my hair and straightening my shoulders. When I opened the door, Alex looked terrible. His face was pale, his hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept. "Mom," he said, his voice a mixture of anger and desperation. "What the hell? The venue just called. They say everything's been canceled." I stepped aside to let him in. "That's correct." He stormed past me into the living room, turning to face me with wild eyes. "What the hell? Mom, the wedding is today. People are flying in. Melissa is having a complete breakdown." I closed the door calmly and followed him into the living room. I was thrown out of the rehearsal dinner yesterday, in front of everyone. "Mom, Melissa was stressed. She didn't mean it. She told me I wasn't welcome, and you stood there and said nothing." Alex ran his hands through his hair. "I was trying not to make a scene." "While she was making one?" I asked quietly. "While she was humiliating me in front of every person we know." "You're blowing this way out of proportion," he said, pacing now. "It was a misunderstanding. Just call the vendors back. Tell them it was a mistake." I sat down on the sofa, my back straight. "No." Alex stopped pacing and stared at me. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean no, Alex. I'm not calling anyone. I'm not reinstating anything. The wedding is canceled." His face flushed with anger. "You can't do this. You have no right." "I have every right," I said, my voice steady. "Every contract is in my name. Every payment came from my account. If I'm not welcome at the wedding, neither is my money." "This isn't about money," he shouted. "Isn't it?" I looked him straight in the eye. "When was the last time you called me just to talk? Alex, not to ask for something, not to have me meet you and Melissa for a dinner where I pick up the check, but just to talk." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "You can't remember, can you?" I continued, "because it's been months, maybe years. I became an ATM to you, not a mother." "That's not fair," he muttered, but I could see the flicker of guilt in his eyes. "What's not fair is expecting me to fund a $50,000 wedding and then treating me like an unwelcome guest." Alex's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face paling further. "Melissa's on her way over." A cold knot formed in my stomach. I hadn't anticipated this confrontation. Not today, but perhaps it was inevitable. "Fine," I said. "She can say whatever she wants to my face instead of behind my back for once." We sat in tense silence for the 7 minutes it took Melissa to arrive. When the doorbell rang, Alex jumped up to answer it. Melissa burst in like a hurricane, still in her pajamas, her face streaked with tears and mascara. "What have you done?" she shrieked at me. "Do you have any idea what you've ruined?" I remained seated, keeping my expression neutral. "Hello, Melissa." "Don't you hello me. The venue says they've already booked another event. The florist won't return our calls. The caterer is keeping our deposit." "My deposit," I corrected quietly. "Every payment came from my account." "We were going to pay you back," she screamed, her face contorted with rage. "When?" I asked simply. "After the honeymoon in the Maldives." Something flickered across Melissa's face, surprise, then alarm. Alex looked confused, glancing between us. "What honeymoon in the Maldives?" he asked. "We're going to Hawaii. That's what we could afford." An uncomfortable silence fell. I reached for my laptop on the coffee table and opened it, turning the screen toward them. "This email came to me yesterday," I said, displaying the confirmation. "Thank you for booking your 14-night stay in the Maldives Overwater Villa with private butler service. Charges have been applied to your American Express ending in 3921. Alex stared at the screen, then at Melissa. I don't understand. We agreed on Hawaii. I scrolled down to show the note at the bottom. Your guests, Alex Miller and Melissa Fletcher, will enjoy unlimited champagne and a private yacht excursion as part of their package. Congratulations! You booked a trip to the Maldives, Alex asked Melissa, his voice hollow. Without telling me. I wanted it to be a surprise, she said quickly, but her eyes darted away. I was going to tell you after the wedding. With my credit card, I added, without asking me. You offered to help with the honeymoon, Melissa shot back. You said, let me know what I can contribute. I meant I would give you a check as a gift. Not that you could secretly book a $26,000 vacation using my credit card information. Alex's jaw dropped. $26,000. Melissa's strategy changed instantly. Her face crumpled, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I just wanted our first trip as husband and wife to be special, she sobbed. I was going to work out a payment plan with Jane. It was going to be a surprise for you. Alex, you've been working so hard. You deserve something amazing. I watched my son's face, seeing the conflict there. Even now, after discovering this deception, he wanted to believe her. Show him the other charges, Jane, I said, my voice harder than I intended. I scrolled through my email, finding the other confirmations. Louis Vuitton luggage set, $4,600. Private chef experiences, $8,950. Exclusive spa treatments, $3,200. I looked up at them. All charged to my card without my knowledge or permission. You're making me look like a criminal, Melissa wailed. It was going to be our dream honeymoon. I was going to tell you everything. When I asked, after I got the credit card bill, Alex stood frozen, looking lost. Mom, there has to be some mistake. Melissa wouldn't. Check your email. I interrupted. The confirmations were sent to my address, but they might have gone to yours too. His hands moved mechanically as he pulled out his phone and scrolled through his inbox. I watched his face change as he found them, confusion, then shock, then the beginning of anger. You did book these, he said to Melissa, his voice flat. You told me you were just researching options. Melissa's tears stopped abruptly. Her expression hardened as she realized her performance wasn't working. Fine. Yes, I booked them. Because your mother kept bragging about how she could afford anything for her baby boy. Because she dangled her money in front of us this whole time. I began, but she cut me off. Don't play innocent. You loved having us depend on you. It made you feel important, didn't it? The successful career woman swooping in to save her son because his salary isn't good enough. Melissa, stop, Alex said, but she was on a roll now. You know what? I'm glad the wedding's canceled. I'm glad because I'm tired of pretending to be grateful to your controlling mother. I'm tired of the strings attached to every gift. I'm tired of her judging me, judging us. There were no strings, I said quietly, until you decided I wasn't even welcome at the event I paid for. Because you were taking over making everything about you. Oh, I think the centerpieces should be higher. Oh, I think the menu should include Alex's favorite childhood dish. It's our wedding, not yours. I stood up slowly, my hands steady. You're right about one thing, Melissa. It was your wedding, but it was my money, and you can't have one without the other anymore. The room fell silent. Alex looked between us, his face a mask of confusion and betrayal. For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. He was caught between two women he loved, or thought he loved, and his world was crumbling. But then I remembered him standing there yesterday, eyes fixed on the floor as Melissa ordered me out. I remembered 30 years of sacrifices, of putting his needs before my own. I remembered how it felt to be dismissed, diminished, and discarded by my own child. I think you should both leave, I said. I have nothing more to say. Mom, please, Alex began, but I shook my head. No, Alex, for once, I'm putting myself first. I suggest you take some time to think about what kind of marriage you're entering into with someone who would secretly spend tens of thousands of dollars behind your back. Melissa grabbed her purse. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Always trying to come between us. Come on, Alex, we don't need her or her money. She stormed toward the door, but Alex didn't immediately follow. He stood looking at me, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of the little boy I'd raised, uncertain, seeking guidance. Alex, Melissa snapped from the doorway. The moment passed, his expression hardened, and he turned to follow her. You know what, Mom, he said, pausing at the door. Dad was right about you. Always controlling, always making everything about you. No wonder he left. The words hit like a physical blow. I staggered slightly, reaching for the sofa to steady myself. Alex, Melissa called again, impatient. He gave me one last cold look before walking out, slamming the door behind him. I sank onto the sofa, my hands finally beginning to shake. No wonder he left. Mark's abandonment, thrown in my face by the son I had sacrificed everything for. But even through the pain, a strange clarity was emerging. I had been used by my ex-husband, and now by my son and his fiancée, Asean. I had allowed it, encouraged it even, by always saying yes, by never setting boundaries, by measuring my worth by how much I could give. No more. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Law Offices of Chen and Associates, a crisp voice answered. This is Jane Miller, I said, my voice steady again. I need to speak with Sarah Chen, please. It's urgent. One moment, Ms. Miller. As I waited, I glanced at the wedding binder still open on my coffee table, a symbol of my generosity and of my exploitation. I closed it firmly. Jane, Sarah's familiar voice came through the line. It's been a while. What can I do for you? I need your help, Sarah, I said, and I need it today. The old Jane might have felt guilty. The old Jane might have called the vendors back, reinstated the payments, apologized for the trouble. But the old Jane was gone. In her place was a woman who finally understood her own worth, and it wasn't measured in checks written or sacrifices made. It was time for Alex and Melissa to learn that lesson too. Sarah Chen's office was a study in understated elegance, sleek modern furniture, tasteful art on the walls, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It matched the woman herself. At 58, Sarah had the poised confidence of someone who had spent decades winning battles in courtrooms and boardrooms alike. Let me make sure I understand correctly, Sarah said, folding her hands on her polished desk. You paid for your son's entire wedding. His fiancée publicly humiliated you at the rehearsal dinner. Your son did nothing to defend you. And when you canceled the vendors, which were all under your name, they both came to your house and verbally attacked you. I nodded, my hands wrapped around a mug of green tea that had grown cold. And then I discovered Melissa had been using my credit card without permission to book a $26,000 honeymoon in the Maldives, plus other expenses. Sarah's eyebrows rose. That's credit card fraud. Jane? I know, I said quietly. I just never thought my own family would. My voice trailed off. Sarah's expression softened slightly. We'd known each other for 20 years. She had handled my divorce from Mark when Alex was 7 and had become something of a friend over the years. You look tired, she said kindly. Tell me what you want to do about all this. It was a good question. What did I want, revenge justice, or just to be left alone? I want to protect myself, I said finally. I want them to stop using me, and I want them to face consequences for once in their lives. Sarah nodded, making a note. First things first, we need to stop any further unauthorized charges on your credit card. I'll draft a letter to the credit card company reporting the fraud. Oh, but it's my son's fiancé, I said, a lifetime of maternal instinct making me hesitate. Sarah gave me a steady look. Jane, if a stranger had stolen your card information and charged $26,000, would you hesitate to report it? She was right, of course. No, I admitted. Then why does Melissa get special treatment? Because she's marrying your son. That doesn't give her the right to steal from you. Put that way, it seemed so simple. I nodded. You're right, do it. Next, we should address the social media issue. I blinked. What social media issue? Sarah turned her computer monitor toward me. On the screen was Melissa's Instagram page. My heart sank as I read the latest post, accompanied by a photo of Melissa with tear-streaked cheeks and perfectly tousled hair. I never thought my future mother-in-law would destroy our wedding out of jealousy and spite. My heart is broken. After all we've done for her, she's trying to ruin the happiest day of our lives. Please pray for us as we try to rebuild what she tore down. The comments were already piling up. Wow, what kind of mother does that? Cut her off. She sounds toxic. So sorry. Melissa, stay strong. A fresh wave of anger burned in my chest as I scrolled. Every word was a lie. After all we've done for her, I had paid for her dream wedding. I had written checks for her designer dress, her overpriced venue, her hand-picked caterer, and now she was painting me as the villain. Another notification popped up, this time from Instagram. Melissa had posted a photo of her and Alex embracing, captioned, "We will not let hate win. Family is who supports you, not who tears you down." Hundreds of likes, dozens of supportive comments. I felt my hands shake, not from grief, but from fury. "This is defamation," Sarah said calmly. "She's making false statements about you that harm your reputation. We can address this in our cease and desist letter." "She's turning everyone against me," I said, scrolling through more comments. Friends I'd known for years were comforting Melissa, condemning me without even hearing my side. "People believe what they want to believe," Sarah replied, "and a young, crying bride makes for a sympathetic victim. But the truth has a way of coming out." She took the phone gently from my hands and set it down. "Now, let's talk about your financial entanglements with Alex. Do you have any joint accounts?" I nodded reluctantly. "One, I opened it when he started college. I've kept it active in case of emergencies." Sarah tapped at her keyboard. "Current balance. Around $22,000, I think. I haven't checked recently." She turned the monitor back toward me, showing my online banking portal. The account balance read 8273.42. "That can't be right," I said, leaning forward. "There should be more than that." Sarah clicked on the transaction history. There it was, a withdrawal of $7,500 just 3 weeks ago, right after I had paid the venue deposit. "Did you authorize this withdrawal?" Sarah asked, though she clearly knew the answer. "No," I whispered, the betrayal cutting fresh and deep. "I haven't touched that account in years. It was for Alex's emergencies." "It seems he considered the wedding an emergency," Sarah said dryly. "Jane, we need to freeze this account immediately before it's emptied completely." For a moment, my hands hovered over the keyboard. That account had been my way of saying, "I'll always be here for you." But that promise didn't mean the same thing anymore. "Do it," I said quietly. Sarah nodded. "Consider it handled." She reached for her phone and began issuing instructions to her paralegal. Her voice was steady, professional, unbothered. Exactly the kind of calm I needed right now. As I listened to her dictate the cease and desist letter, something strange settled over me. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry anymore. For the first time in weeks, I felt steady. Alex and Melissa had taken enough from me. My money, my dignity, my role as a mother. They wouldn't take another thing. Sarah ended the call and looked at me with a faint smile. You've done everything right, Jane. If they want a wedding, they'll have to pay for it themselves. I let out a slow breath. Let them try. My phone buzzed with a call. Linda, my sister-in-law, Mark's sister. I hesitated, then answered. Jane, what on earth is going on? Linda's voice was tight with disapproval. Alex called Mark in tears. Something about you canceling the wedding. Of course, Alex would call his father. Mark, who had walked out on us when Alex was 7. Mark, who had missed school plays and baseball games and graduation. Mark, who sent birthday checks instead of visits. Yes, I canceled it, I said simply. How could you do that to your own son? Linda demanded. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is for everyone? Less embarrassing than being thrown out of my own venue in front of 50 guests, I replied. There was a pause. What are you talking about? I realized then that Alex had told his father, and by extension, Linda, a carefully edited version of events, one where I was the villain, not the victim. Ask Alex to tell you what happened at the rehearsal dinner, I said. Ask him why I wasn't welcome at the wedding I paid for. Jane, you've always been difficult, Linda said, lowering her voice as if imparting a confidence. But this is your son's wedding day. Can't you just be the bigger person? There it was again. Be the bigger person. Code for swallow the insult. Write the check. Stay quiet. I've been the bigger person for 30 years. Linda, I said, I'm tired of it. This isn't like you, she said, sounding genuinely confused. No, I agreed. It isn't like the old me, but it's exactly like the new me. I ended the call before she could respond. Sarah was watching me with something like approval in her eyes. Well done, she said. Setting boundaries isn't easy, especially with family. It feels, I searched for the word, liberating. Good. Now let's make sure those boundaries stay in place. She turned back to her computer. I'm drafting 3 documents. First, a cease and desist letter regarding the defamatory social media posts. Second, a formal notification to the credit card company about the fraudulent charges. Third, a letter to Alex regarding the unauthorized withdrawal from the joint account. I watched her efficient typing, feeling a weight lifting from my shoulders. For so long, I had carried everything alone, the financial burdens, the emotional labor, the responsibility of maintaining family harmony at any cost. It felt strange but wonderful to have someone fighting for me for a change. By the time I left Sarah's office 2 hours later, the letters had been drafted, reviewed, and sent. The joint account was frozen. The credit card company had been notified of the fraud, and a formal cease and desist had been emailed to Melissa, with copies sent certified mail to both her and her parents. I felt lighter than I had in months, maybe years. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Gary Whitaker, Melissa's father. We need to talk about what you've done. I smiled faintly as I slipped the phone back into my purse without responding. Let them sweat for a change. The cease and desist letter hit like a bomb. My phone began ringing nonstop within an hour of Sarah's paralegal confirming delivery of the email. First Alex, then Melissa, then numbers I didn't recognize. I silenced them all. I sat in my favorite armchair by the window, a cup of tea at my side, and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt at peace with putting myself first. The doorbell rang at 7:42 p.m. I peeked through the blinds to see Gary Whitaker, Melissa's father, standing on my porch. His luxury SUV was parked in my driveway, gleaming and ostentatious, just like the man himself. I didn't answer. He rang again, then knocked sharply. Jane, I know you're in there. We need to talk. I remained silent, watching him through a crack in the blinds. After a few minutes, he walked back to his car, his face flushed with anger. As he pulled away, I caught sight of Melissa in the passenger seat, her face buried in her hands. My phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. I listened cautiously. Jane, it's Gary Whitaker. His voice was tight, clipped, like he was forcing every word through clenched teeth. I don't know what Melissa said to you at the rehearsal, but surely you can't mean to ruin the whole wedding over one misunderstanding. I waited for the real reason he had called. He exhaled sharply. Listen, if this is about money, I can't lie. We're in a tight spot right now, but I'm sure we can work something out if you'll just reinstate the payments. There it was. The Whitakers weren't as financially secure as they pretended to be. That explained why they had contributed almost nothing to the wedding, despite Melissa being their only daughter. It explained why Melissa had been so eager to use my credit card. Do you know what this will do to Melissa? Gary continued, his voice rising. The guests, the reputation of both families. The message cut off mid-sentence. I deleted it without a second thought. The next morning, I woke to an email from the venue manager. Dear Ms. Miller, as per your cancellation request, the Miller-Fletcher wedding has been removed from our schedule. Please note, the date has been rebooked by another couple. Okay. If you require any further assistance, please don't hesitate to contact us. Sincerely, Jennifer Oakes, Event Director, rebooked. Their dream wedding wasn't just canceled, it now belonged to someone else. For a moment, I pictured Melissa scrolling through Pinterest, screaming at Alex while her parents sat helpless on their couch. But I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt nothing. Throughout the day, the calls and texts continued. I ignored them all, focusing instead on things I had neglected for too long. I went for a long walk in the park. I called an old college friend I hadn't spoken to in months. I browsed a bookstore without checking my watch every 5 minutes. It was liberating. The email came late Sunday night. I almost didn't open it. The subject line alone made my stomach turn. Let's put this behind us. I clicked anyway. Mom, we've decided to forgive you for everything that's happened. I know emotions were high and people said things they didn't mean. Melissa and I talked it over, and we're willing to let you come to the wedding if you can behave and not make things awkward. This is our day, and we'd appreciate it if you didn't make it about you. Let's move forward as a family. Alex, I stared at the screen, my jaw slack. Forgive me. A laugh burst out of my throat before I could stop it. It started small, sharp, but grew until I was clutching my sides, shaking with bitter amusement. Forgive me, after I funded their fairy tale, after Melissa threw me out of the rehearsal like some hired help, after Alex stood there silent while I was humiliated in front of everyone. They thought I needed forgiving. I wiped a tear from the corner of my eye, not from sadness, but from laughing too hard. I hit reply and hovered my fingers over the keyboard, but I didn't type a single word. They didn't deserve a response. Instead, I closed the laptop and pushed it aside. They could keep their little fantasy of control. I was done playing the fool. When my phone rang at 11:15 p.m., I answered without checking the caller ID, assuming it was yet another plea from Alex or one of the Whitakers. Jane, it's Maria. I smiled, genuinely this time. Maria had been my closest friend since our days together in business school. Unlike most of my social circle, she had no connection to Alex or the wedding drama. Maria, it's good to hear your voice, I said, meaning it. Likewise. Listen, I just saw the strangest thing on Facebook. Melissa, that's your son's fiancée, right? She's posting all these tearful updates about you canceling their wedding. What on earth is going on? I took a deep breath and told her everything. The rehearsal dinner humiliation, the unauthorized credit card charges, the frozen bank account, the cease and desist letter. Maria listened without interrupting. When I finished, she whistled low. Holy shit, Jane, that's… wow. I know it sounds extreme, I said hesitantly. Extreme. It sounds completely justified. They were using you like an ATM and then had the nerve to throw you out. Maria's indignation warmed me. Honey, the only thing I'm confused about is why you didn't do this sooner. I kept hoping Alex would… I trailed off, not sure how to finish. Would what magically become ungrateful stop letting his fiancée walk all over you both? Maria's voice softened. Jane, you've spent your whole life putting everyone else first. It's about damn time you stood up for yourself. Tears pricked at my eyes, not from sadness, but from relief. Someone understood. Someone was on my side. Thanks, Maria, I said. That means a lot. So, what are you going to do now? She asked, on what would have been the wedding day. I hadn't thought that far ahead. The wedding was scheduled for Saturday, just 6 days away. I don't know, I admitted. Stay home and feel sorry for myself. Probably. Absolutely not, Maria declared. You're coming with me to the spa. I've had a reservation at Lakeside Resort for months. It was supposed to be for my anniversary, but Stephen has to travel for work, so it's girls' weekend now. Massages, facials, wine by the infinity pool. Say yes. For a moment, I hesitated. It felt wrong somehow to be enjoying myself while Alex's wedding imploded. But then I remembered his cold eyes as Melissa ordered me out. His cruel voicemail. Yes, I said firmly. That sounds perfect. Maria laughed. That's my girl. Pack something nice. That resort has a fantastic restaurant. We'll drink champagne and toast to your liberation. After we hung up, I sat for a long time, turning my phone over in my hands. Then I did something I'd never done before. I turned it off completely and placed it in a drawer. Whatever chaos was unfolding in Alex and Melissa's world, I didn't need to witness it. For once, their problems weren't mine to solve. The fallout was even more dramatic than I had anticipated. It started with an email from the florist. We regret to inform you that due to a canceled contract, we are unable to provide services for the Miller-Fletcher wedding. We wish you the best moving forward. Then the photographer posted an Instagram story about an unexpected opening this weekend and tagged their business account. Next came the band, a polite voicemail. Hi, Jane. Just wanted to confirm we've marked the Miller-Fletcher event as canceled. Thanks for letting us know. The dominoes were falling one after another. By Friday morning, the wedding was in shambles. And that's when the call came. Melissa. Her voice was different this time, tight and trembling, but laced with sugar. Jane, can we talk? I'm listening, I said flatly. I know things got heated at the rehearsal, but we were all stressed. You know how weddings are. She forced a small laugh. I shouldn't have said what I said. You told me to leave, I said coldly. In front of everyone? I was overwhelmed, but please, let's not throw everything away over one mistake. Alex and I, we can't afford to lose all the deposits. The guests are expecting a wedding. I could almost hear her trying to smile through gritted teeth. Be reasonable, she said. Do this for Alex. Don't ruin his big day. My hand tightened around the phone. I'm not ruining anything, I said calmly. I'm saving myself. There was silence on the line. Then her voice dropped the sugary tone. You're a bitter old woman, she hissed. You've always been jealous of me. Alex deserves better than you. Then he can marry better, too, I said, and ended the call before she could respond. The phone rang again almost immediately. Alex this time. I let it go to voicemail. I was sitting at my desk scrolling through emails when I saw it. The subject line read, "Your complaint number 78293 unauthorized credit card charges." I clicked it open, scanning the formal response from my credit card company. Dear Ms. Miller, we have completed our investigation into the unauthorized charges you reported on your American Express account ending in 3921. Based on our findings, we have determined that these charges were indeed made without your authorization. As such, we have reversed the following charges: Maldives Resort and Spa, $26, $450 Helm, Louis Vuitton, $4,623.75, La Belle Cuisine, Private Chef, $8,950 Helm, Serene Wellness Spa, $3,200 Helms. The total credit of $43,223.75 has been applied to your account, effective immediately. We take fraud very seriously and have placed a security alert on your account. I sat back in my chair, a strange sense of vindication washing over me. It was one thing for me to know I had been wronged. It was another to have a major corporation validate that feeling after an investigation. My phone pinged with a text notification. It was from Sarah Chin Jane. The bank has completed their review of the unauthorized withdrawal from the joint account. They're reversing the $7,500 and returning it to the account. I suggest closing the account entirely once the funds are restored. Let me know if you'd like me to handle that for you. Another ping. This one from an unknown number. I opened it cautiously. Ms. Miller, this is Thomas Reed from the Grand Plaza Hotel. I understand you were the contract holder for the Miller-Fletcher wedding reception. As per your cancellation, we've rebooked the date, but I wanted to inform you that Mr. Miller and Ms. Fletcher have been contacting our staff repeatedly, attempting to reinstate the event without your authorization. Rest assured, we've made it clear that any new booking would require new contracts and deposits, so they were trying to salvage the wedding without me and without my money. Good luck with that. One by one, the carefully constructed pieces of their dream day were collapsing. The castle they had built on my generosity was crumbling to dust. The wedding day came anyway, a bright Saturday morning in June, exactly as Melissa had wanted. I woke to the sound of birds outside my window at Lakeside Resort, the scent of lavender drifting through the air from the garden below. The spa had upgraded Maria and me to a suite with a private balcony overlooking the lake. At noon, I was stretched out on a chaise lounge, my hair wrapped in a towel, a chilled glass of champagne in hand after an indulgent hot stone massage. Maria was beside me, flipping through a magazine and occasionally reading out ridiculous celebrity gossip. A notification pinged on my phone, which I had reluctantly turned back on that morning. Today's the day. Can't wait to see you both at 2 p.m. A guest clearly unaware that the fairy tale had crumbled. I sipped my champagne and smiled faintly. At exactly 2:00 p.m., I imagined the venue, now booked for another couple, bustling with flowers and laughter that had nothing to do with Alex or Melissa. The thought didn't bring satisfaction. It brought peace. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. The staff brought us a fruit platter and refilled our glasses. I reached for my phone, opened Instagram, and snapped a photo of the view. Endless blue sky, sunlight sparkling on the water, my champagne flute glinting in the corner. I typed a short caption, "Best decision I ever made." No context, no names, but I knew they'd see it, and they'd know exactly what I meant. Maria raised her glass in a toast. "To boundaries," she said with a grin. I clinked my glass against hers. "To freedom." By Monday morning, the whispers had turned into a roar. It started with a single comment under Melissa's tearful Instagram post. Didn't Jane pay for the whole wedding? Though this doesn't add up. At first, Melissa's friends rushed to defend her. Don't spread lies. You don't know the full story. She's a toxic mom trying to ruin their happiness. But then another comment appeared. My cousin works at the venue. Jane booked and paid for everything. Melissa and Alex didn't pay a dime. The dam broke. Screenshots of Melissa's honeymoon package, charged to my credit card, somehow leaked into a wedding gossip group. People were ruthless, so they used her to pay for a wedding and luxury vacation, then humiliated her classy. Imagine biting the hand that feeds you. They deserve each other, spoiled and entitled. I feel sorry for Jane. Even some of Alex's old college friends weighed in. Not surprised. He always let women walk all over him. I didn't comment. I didn't like or share, but I saved every single screenshot. Later that afternoon, Linda, my sister-in-law, called. Jane, she began cautiously. I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. We all thought. Melissa made it sound like you were trying to sabotage them for no reason. You believed her, I said calmly. I know, Linda sighed, but people are starting to see the truth now. I just wanted you to know you're not alone in this anymore. I didn't reply. I didn't need her pity. What I needed, and finally had, was clarity. For years, I had let people take and take, thinking it was my job to keep the peace. But peace bought with self-sacrifice isn't peace. It's silence. And I was done being silent. By the time the second week passed, the gossip had spread like wildfire. Melissa's Instagram account had gone private. Alex's profile picture had disappeared. It started small, one mutual friend posting, maybe don't bite the hand that feeds you next time. Then a cousin of Melissa's shared a cryptic tweet. If you can't afford your own wedding, don't scream at the person paying for it. People weren't just whispering anymore. They were laughing. Screenshots of Melissa's posts leaked into a wedding forum. Brides and strangers alike ripped her apart. She ruined her own wedding by being a brat. Sounds like she thought her MIL was her sugar mama. The entitlement is unreal. Who throws out the person funding the whole event? Even vendors joined in. A florist posted anonymously. We warned her that her mother-in-law was the contract holder. She didn't care. She thought she was above consequences. I didn't say a word. I didn't defend myself. I didn't need to. The truth had a way of crawling out on its own. By the end of the month, Alex and Melissa's guest list had evaporated. Friends stopped answering their calls. Their dream wedding was the talk of the town, not as a celebration, but as a cautionary tale. And me, I was sitting on a balcony 2 states away, watching the sun dip below the horizon with a glass of wine in my hand. Maria had convinced me to extend our spa weekend into a proper vacation. You deserve it after 30 years of putting everyone else first. I posted one quiet photo, my feet propped up, the ocean stretching out endlessly before me. The caption simple, happiness looks better on me. I didn't check for likes or comments. I didn't care if Alex saw it or Melissa or any of the relatives who had once called me dramatic. This wasn't for them. This was for me. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Alex, I stared at the screen for a long moment before pressing decline. A text followed. Can we talk? We made mistakes. I turned off the phone and set it face down on the table. For years, I had let people pull me into their storms. Now, I chose peace, and peace meant never stepping back into their chaos again. They thought they could humiliate me and still live off my generosity. They were wrong. 3 weeks after what should have been Alex and Melissa's wedding day, I returned home to find my mailbox stuffed with cards and small packages. Confused, I carried them inside and spread them across my kitchen table. The first envelope contained a handwritten note on elegant stationery. Dear Jane, you don't know me, but I'm part of a Facebook group for mothers of adult children. Your story has been shared among us, and I just wanted to tell you how much your courage has inspired me. I've spent years letting my daughter and her husband take advantage of my generosity, afraid that setting boundaries would mean losing them. Watching you stand up for yourself gave me the strength to finally say no when they asked me to refinance my house to buy them a vacation property. Thank you for showing us that it's never too late to reclaim your dignity. With gratitude, Eleanor P. I blinked in surprise. The next card contained a similar message, as did the next, and the next. Women from across the country, most of them strangers, writing to thank me for inspiring them. Some had enclosed small gifts, scented candles, bookmarks, packets of gourmet tea. Somehow, my private family drama had become public, morphing into something larger than itself. I wasn't just Jane Miller, the mother who canceled her son's wedding. I had become a symbol for women reclaiming their power after years of being taken for granted. It was both touching and unsettling. My phone rang, Maria calling for our weekly check-in. Have you seen it? She asked without preamble. Seen what? Oh my God, you haven't? Go to Facebook right now. There's a group called Standing with Jane with over 20,000 members. What? I nearly dropped the phone. Why would anyone? Because your story touched a nerve. Jane, there are thousands of women out there who've been in your shoes. Maybe not the exact situation, but the pattern. Giving and giving until there's nothing left, only to be discarded when they're no longer useful. I logged onto Facebook with shaking hands. Maria was right. There it was, a group with my name in the title, filled with posts from women sharing their own stories of financial and emotional exploitation by adult children, in-laws, and partners. This is overwhelming, I murmured. It's what happens when someone finally says what everyone's been thinking. Maria replied, You've become a folk hero for middle-aged women everywhere. I never wanted that, I said honestly. I just wanted to be treated with basic respect. And that's exactly why people are connecting with your story. You weren't asking for the moon. You were asking for the bare minimum of human decency. And when you didn't get it, you refused to continue enabling bad behavior. It's powerful. As we spoke, I scrolled through the group, reading post after post from women who had found themselves in similar situations. My son expected me to babysit his 3 kids 5 days a week, unpaid, while he and his wife went on 3 vacations last year. When I asked for one day off to attend my friend's retirement party, they called me selfish. My daughter and son-in-law lived in my basement for just 3 months that turned into 2 years. They contributed nothing to utilities or groceries, but ate out at expensive restaurants twice a week. I drained my retirement account to help my son start his business. 3 years later, he refused to invite me to the company Christmas party because I'm not professional enough for his image. Each story reflected the same pattern: generosity exploited, boundaries trampled, and love weaponized to extract more sacrifice. What am I supposed to do with this? I asked Maria, genuinely at a loss. Nothing, if you don't want to, she said. You don't owe these people anything. But if you're comfortable with it, maybe your experience could help others set healthier boundaries before they reach their breaking point. I considered this. I had spent my entire life trying to be invisible, the supportive mother, the reliable colleague, the accommodating friend. The idea of becoming a public figure, even in this limited way, was terrifying, but something about these messages touched me deeply. These women saw themselves in me. Maybe I could help them see the strength in themselves. I'll think about it, I told Maria after we hung up. I continued reading the cards that had arrived in the mail. One in particular caught my eye, a simple note card with a sunflower on the front. Inside, in neat handwriting, Dear Jane, you don't remember me, but I was at the rehearsal dinner. I'm the cousin of Melissa's college roommate. I witnessed what happened, how cruelly you were treated, and I was ashamed that I said nothing. When the truth about who paid for everything came out, I felt even worse for my silence. Your dignity in the face of such disrespect was remarkable. Thank you for showing me what quiet strength looks like. Sincerely, Rebecca Thompson. I traced my fingers over the words. Someone had been there, someone had seen, and while they hadn't spoken up in the moment, they had noticed, and it had affected them. Maybe that was enough. My doorbell rang, startling me from my thoughts. I approached cautiously, peeking through the peephole. Linda stood on my porch, shifting nervously from foot to foot. I hesitated, then opened the door. Jane, she said, her expression contrite. I hope I'm not intruding. That depends on why you're here, I replied, not unkindly, but not inviting her in either. I wanted to apologize, properly, in person. She lifted a gift bag she was carrying. And to bring you this, it's not much, just a peace offering. I stepped back, allowing her inside. We moved to the living room, an awkward silence settling between us. Linda had been my sister-in-law for nearly a decade before Mark left. After the divorce, our relationship had become strained but cordial, Christmas cards and occasional phone calls, but little genuine connection. I was wrong, she said finally, setting the bag on the coffee table. I believed Alex without question. I assumed you were being difficult because that's what Mark always said about you. I arched an eyebrow. Did he now? She had the grace to look embarrassed. I'm sorry. I should have known better. Mark isn't exactly the most reliable narrator when it comes to relationships. She paused. The thing is, Jane, I've watched you put Alex first for 30 years. You worked 2 jobs when Mark first left. You skipped your own mother's 70th birthday party to attend Alex's soccer tournament. You've never been selfish a day in your life. People change, I said softly. No, Linda shook her head firmly. They don't. Not fundamentally. You've always been generous and kind. The only thing that's changed is that you finally realized you deserve the same treatment in return. Her words washed over me, unexpectedly healing. Linda, who had known me since I was a young bride, who had witnessed my marriage crumble and my struggle as a single mother, she saw me clearly now. Thank you for that, I said. Don't thank me. I should have stood by you from the beginning. She pushed the gift bag toward me. Open it. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound journal with my initials embossed on the cover. I thought maybe you could write your story. Linda explained. The real story. Not the version everyone else has been telling about you. It might be therapeutic. I ran my fingers over the smooth leather, surprisingly touched. That's very thoughtful. There's something else you should know, Linda said, her voice dropping slightly. Mark is furious with Alex. This surprised me. Mark, why? He finally got the full story, not just from Alex, but from one of Melissa's relatives who knows my hairdresser. She rolled her eyes at the small-town connection. When he found out what really happened at the rehearsal dinner and about the credit card fraud, let's just say there was a very heated phone call. I tried to picture this. Mark, who had rarely disciplined Alex during our marriage, taking him to task over his behavior toward me. Mark told him that no son of his treats a woman that way, especially not his mother. Linda continued. He said Alex was raised better than that. A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. That's rich, coming from Mark. Linda's lips twitched in reluctant amusement. I may have pointed out the irony myself, but still, I thought you should know. Not everyone is taking their side anymore. As Linda left, I stood in the doorway watching her drive away, the journal clutched in my hands. The world had shifted subtly around me. People who had once dismissed my feelings were now defending them. Those who had taken me for granted were facing consequences. It felt like justice, but gentler than I had imagined. Dr. Eleanor Roberts' office was a soothing space, soft blues and greens, comfortable furniture, and large windows overlooking a small garden. At Maria's insistence, I had finally made an appointment with a therapist specializing in family dynamics and women's issues. So, Jane, Dr. Roberts began, her voice calm and measured. What brings you here today? Where to even begin? I took a deep breath. I canceled my son's wedding after his fiancée humiliated me at the rehearsal dinner. And now I seem to have accidentally started some kind of movement on social media. Dr. Jaws, Roberts's expression remained neutral, but her eyes crinkled slightly at the corners. That's quite an opening statement. Let's start with how you're feeling about all this. Confused, I admitted. Part of me feels strong and certain. I know I did the right thing by standing up for myself, but another part feels guilty, like I failed as a mother. Interesting, she nodded. Can you tell me more about that guilt? Mothers are supposed to sacrifice for their children, aren't they? Put their needs above our own. That's what I've always done, until now. Who told you that's what mothers are supposed to do? She asked. The question caught me off guard. I, everyone, society. My own mother certainly believed it. And what about fathers? Are they expected to sacrifice everything for their children? I thought about Mark, who had walked away from his 7-year-old son without a backward glance, who had missed birthdays and graduations, who had built a new life while I was still piecing together the shattered remains of our old one. No, I said slowly, they're not. That's an interesting double standard, isn't it? Dr. Roberts observed. Let me ask you something else. When did you learn that your worth as a person was measured by how much you could give to others? The question hit me like a physical blow. Memories cascaded through my mind. My mother exhausted but still cooking elaborate meals for my father's colleagues. My mother-in-law pulling me aside on my wedding day to whisper, remember, quiet women make the best wives. Don't make waves. My own silent tears as I worked night shifts to afford Alex's braces, while Mark posted photos of his European vacation with his new girlfriend. I was taught that from the beginning, I said softly. But I think I really learned it when Mark left. I was so determined to prove that we would be fine without him, that I could give Alex everything he needed, that we didn't need anyone else. Dr. Goer, Roberts nodded thoughtfully. And in trying to prove that, what did you teach Alex about relationships? I frowned. Not following? What do you mean? If you constantly gave without requiring anything in return, respect, gratitude, reciprocity, what message did that send to Alex about how relationships work, about how people should treat each other? The realization dawned slowly, painfully. I taught him that love means taking whatever is offered without having to give back. You can't buy love, Jane, Dr. Roberts said gently. And when you try, you don't teach your son about love. You teach him about transactions. I sat with that uncomfortable truth for a long moment. Had I, in my desperate attempt to compensate for Mark's absence, inadvertently taught Alex that relationships were about what you could get from others, rather than mutual respect? The irony, I said finally, is that I thought I was protecting him from becoming like his father. But maybe I just created a different kind of problem. That's a powerful insight, Dr. Roberts acknowledged. And it's not too late to correct the course. By setting boundaries now, even in this dramatic way, You're actually teaching Alex something important about respect and consequences. If he's willing to learn, I sighed. That's not within your control. She reminded me. You can only be responsible for your own actions and reactions, not for how others receive them. Over the next hour, we delved deeper into my patterns of self sacrifice and people pleasing. Dr. Sir Roberts helped me see how my identity had become so wrapped up in being Alex's mother that I had lost sight of who Jane was, her own needs, desires, and boundaries. Homework for next time, Dr. Roberts said as our session was ending. I'd like you to make a list of things you enjoy doing purely for yourself, things that have nothing to do with being a mother or an employee or any other role, just activities that bring you joy. I stared at her blankly. I'm not sure I know what those are anymore. She smiled kindly. That's exactly why this exercise is important. Start small. Maybe there was something you loved doing before life got so busy. A hobby, an interest. As I drove home, I tried to remember what I had enjoyed before motherhood and career had consumed me. I had played tennis in college. I had loved photography. I used to spend hours in bookstores, losing myself in historical fiction. When had I stopped doing those things? When had I decided I didn't deserve time for myself? At a red light, I made an impulsive decision. Instead of turning left toward home, I went right toward Riverside Park, where I used to walk when Alex was a baby. I parked the car and stepped out into the late afternoon sunshine. The park was filled with families, joggers, people walking dogs. I found a bench overlooking the river and sat down, just watching the water flow past. It was so simple, sitting still, observing the world, yet it felt like a luxury I hadn't allowed myself in years. My phone buzzed in my purse. I almost ignored it, but something made me check the screen. Alex, Mom, can we talk? Please, in person. I've made terrible mistakes. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to continue the peaceful separation I had established. But another part, the part that would always be his mother, no matter what, wanted to hear what he had to say. Not ready for that yet. I typed finally, still processing everything. His response came almost immediately. I understand. When you're ready, I'll be here. I'm sorry, Mom. More than I can say in a text. I put the phone away without responding. Whatever conversation we needed to have, it wouldn't be resolved through messages. And I wasn't ready to face him yet, not until I was stronger in my new boundaries. Not until I was sure I wouldn't slip back into old patterns at the first sign of his contrition. As I sat watching the sunset paint the river in shades of gold and pink, I realized something important for the first time in decades. I was putting my own healing first, and it felt right. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon, 6 weeks after what should have been Alex and Melissa's wedding day. I was in my garden, tending to the tomato plants I had impulsively purchased the previous weekend, part of my new commitment to finding small joys. Jane Miller speaking, I answered, not recognizing the number. Jane, it's Mark. I nearly dropped the phone. My ex-husband and I had communicated solely through lawyers or brief texts about Alex for the past 23 years. Direct calls were unprecedented. Mark, I said neutrally, this is unexpected. I know. His voice sounded older than I remembered, more graveled. I'm in town. I was hoping we could meet. There are some things I need to say to you. In person. My first instinct was to refuse. What could Mark possibly have to say that would matter to me now? But curiosity won out. When and where? We arranged to meet at a cafe downtown, neutral territory, public enough to discourage drama, but quiet enough for a private conversation. The next day, I arrived 10 minutes early, choosing a table near the back with a clear view of the door. I ordered a cappuccino and waited, trying to quell the nervous energy coursing through me. Mark arrived precisely on time. At 65, he had aged well, still tall and fit, silver hair replacing the dark brown I had known, lines around his eyes the only real concession to time. He spotted me immediately and walked over, hesitating before taking the seat across from me. "Jane," he nodded. "Thank you for meeting me." "You said you had something to say," I replied, keeping my voice even. "I'm listening." He ordered a black coffee before turning his attention back to me. His eyes, the same deep blue that Alex had inherited, studied my face. "You look good," he said finally. "Really good." "Thank you. What did you want to discuss, Mark?" He sighed, recognizing my unwillingness to engage in small talk. "I owe you an apology. Long overdue." This was not what I had expected. I remained silent, waiting. "When I left," he continued, "I told myself a lot of stories to justify it, that we had grown apart, that you were too focused on Alex and not enough on me, that I deserved more excitement than suburban life with a wife and child." He paused as the server delivered his coffee. "But the truth," he said after taking a sip, "is that I was a coward. I ran away from responsibility, from commitment, from the hard work of being a husband and father." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "After 23 years. Because seeing Alex make the same mistakes, treating someone who loves him as disposable, made me realize where he learned it." Mark's gaze was direct, unflinching. "He learned it from me." The admission hung in the air between us. "I called him after I found out what happened at the rehearsal dinner." Mark continued. "I told him he was out of line, that he needed to apologize to you. He said something that hit me like a punch to the gut. 'Why should I care what she feels? You didn't—'" I winced, imagining Alex's cold voice saying those words. "And he was right," Mark said quietly. "I didn't care enough about your feelings. I walked away and left you to raise our son alone. I sent checks instead of showing up. I took the easy way out, every time." "Yes," I agreed. "You did. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Jane, what I did isn't forgivable. But I wanted you to know that I recognize the damage I caused. To you, to Alex, to the family we could have been." I took a sip of my cappuccino, considering his words. There was a time when this apology would have meant everything to me. Now it was just words. Too little. Too late. "Do you know what Alex said to me?" I asked. When I confronted him about letting Melissa throw me out of the rehearsal dinner, Mark shook his head. He said, "No wonder Dad left you." My voice remained steady, but I saw Mark flinch. "He threw your abandonment in my face as a weapon. He used your example to justify his own cruelty." "I'm sorry, Jane, so deeply sorry." "I don't need your apology. Mark, I needed your support 23 years ago. I needed a partner in raising our son. I needed you to teach him how men should treat women, especially the women who love them." He nodded, accepting the rebuke. "You're right, and I failed at all of that. But maybe it's not too late for Alex. He's been calling me every day, devastated about what happened. Melissa left him. Did you know? This was news to me." "No, I didn't." 3 weeks ago. Apparently, once the wedding was canceled and the social media backlash hit, she decided he wasn't worth the trouble. Or maybe she realized there wouldn't be any more luxury trips on your credit card. Mark's expression hardened. "She moved to Chicago, already dating someone new, according to her Instagram." I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Vindication, yes, but also sadness for Alex. Despite everything, he was still my son, and I didn't want him to hurt. "Alex is a mess." Mark continued. He lost his job, too. The company didn't appreciate being associated with the wedding scandal. He's staying at my place temporarily. What do you want from me, Mark? I asked directly. Nothing. You've given enough. He met my gaze. I just thought you should know that your actions had consequences, appropriate ones, and that maybe, if you're ever ready, there might be a chance to rebuild something with our son. Not the same relationship as before, something healthier. That would require significant changes on Alex's part, I said. I know, and he knows it too. Now, the hard way. Mark hesitated. There's something else. I've been thinking about what I can do to make amends, in some small way. I can't change the past, but I can try to do better now. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table. What's this? I asked, not touching it. The title to my lake house. I'm signing it over to you. I stared at him in disbelief. Your lake house. Why would you? Because you earned it, he said simply. While I was building my career and my new life, you were sacrificing everything for our son. That house should have been half yours in the divorce anyway. If I'd been fair, consider it 23 years of back payments on what I owe you. I left the envelope untouched. I don't want your house, Mark. Then sell it, donate the money, whatever you want. But it's yours now. He pushed back from the table. I should go. Thank you for hearing me out. As he stood to leave, I found myself asking the question that had haunted me for decades. Why did you never try with Alex? I mean, why were you content with being a distant figure in his life? Mark paused, his expression pained. Because I knew I didn't deserve him. Or you. Walking away was easier than facing how badly I had failed. He gave a sad smile. Cowardice again. It's been the defining feature of my life. After he left, I sat for a long time, the untouched envelope before me. Mark's apology hadn't healed old wounds, but it had answered questions I had carried for years. There was a certain peace in that. When I finally left the cafe, I took the envelope with me. Not because I wanted Mark's lake house, but because accepting it felt like closing a chapter that had remained unfinished for too long. The next day, I received a text from Alex's mom. I heard you met with Dad. Can we talk? Please, this time, I was ready. Saturday, 2 p.m., we can meet at Riverside Cafe. His response was immediate. I'll be there, thank you. In the days leading up to our meeting, I thought carefully about what I needed from this conversation. Dr. Roberts had helped me outline clear boundaries and expectations. This wasn't about punishing Alex, but it also wasn't about sweeping his behavior under the rug. Saturday arrived with clear skies and mild temperatures. I dressed carefully, not to impress, but to remind myself of my own worth. A tailored blouse, comfortable slacks, the silver earrings I had bought myself on my 60th birthday. Alex was already at the cafe when I arrived, seated at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. He stood as I approached, his face a mixture of hope and apprehension. Mom, he said softly. Up close, I could see the toll the past weeks had taken. He had lost weight, dark circles under his eyes, his normally well-groomed appearance slightly disheveled. Hello, Alex, I said, taking the seat across from him. Thank you for coming, he began. I know I don't deserve your time. Everyone deserves to be heard, I replied, but that doesn't mean there aren't consequences for their actions. He nodded, accepting this. I don't even know where to start. Try the beginning, I suggested. Why did you let Melissa treat me that way at the rehearsal dinner? Alex flinched but held my gaze. Because I was a coward. Because I was afraid of losing her if I contradicted her. Because I had convinced myself that keeping the peace was more important than doing what was right. He paused. And because, somewhere along the way, I started taking you for granted. I assumed you would always be there, always forgive, always put my happiness first, even at your own expense. It was a more self-aware answer than I had expected. When did it change? I asked. When did I become an ATM to you instead of a mother? Alex's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I don't know. It happened so gradually. Melissa, she had big dreams, expensive tastes. We were always stretching beyond our means, and you were always there, offering to help. So you started expecting it, I finished for him. Yes, he admitted, and then resenting it, perversely enough, resenting that we needed your help, that I couldn't provide the lifestyle Melissa wanted on my own. It was easier to be angry at you than to admit I was failing. I sipped my coffee, giving myself time to process his words. There was genuine remorse in his voice, but words were easy. Actions were what mattered. Melissa left, he said after a moment, 3 weeks ago. Your father mentioned that. She said I wasn't who she thought I was. A bitter laugh escaped him. Apparently, she was expecting someone who would stand up to his mother, not someone who would let her walk all over us. The irony wasn't lost on me. So she disrespected me for giving too much, then left you for not fighting when I stopped. Pretty much. Alex stared into his coffee. I lost my job too. The company said the social media scandal reflected poorly on them. I'm sorry about that, I said, and meant it. What will you do now? I'm staying with Dad until I figure things out, sending out resumes. He hesitated. And I've started therapy, twice a week. This surprised me. That's good, Alex. Dad's idea. Actually, he said we both needed to break the cycle of taking the women in our lives for granted. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. I think he's trying to make up for lost time. Being a father now? Better late than never, I observed. Mom, Alex said, his voice cracking slightly. I know I'm sorry doesn't begin to cover it. What Melissa and I did, the way we treated you, the credit card fraud, all of it. It was inexcusable. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope someday we might find a way back to some kind of relationship, a healthier one. I studied my son's face, the little boy I had raised, now a man of 35, finally facing consequences for his actions. I felt a complex mixture of emotions, lingering hurt, yes, but also a cautious hope. I can't make any promises, Alex, I said honestly. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild, but I'm willing to try, under certain conditions. Anything, he said quickly. First, complete financial separation. No more asking for money. No more joint accounts. No financial entanglements of any kind. You need to stand on your own feet. He nodded, agreed. Second, continue with therapy. Not just for a few weeks, but long term. You need to understand why you behaved the way you did, or you'll repeat the pattern. I will, he promised. It's already helping. Third, respect my boundaries. If I say no to something, accept it without argument or guilt trips. My time, my resources, my energy, they belong to me, and I choose how to allocate them. Of course, he agreed. And finally, I said, meeting his gaze directly, understand that rebuilding will take time. We'll start small, perhaps a phone call once a week, an occasional lunch. We need to get to know each other again, as the people we are now, not the roles we've played. Alex's eyes filled with tears. I'd like that, very much. As we finished our coffee, the conversation shifted to lighter topics, books he was reading, a documentary I had enjoyed. It wasn't the easy familiarity we once had, but it was civil, respectful, perhaps the beginning of something new. When we parted, he hesitated, clearly unsure if a hug would be welcome. I made the decision for him, offering my hand instead. He took it, squeezing gently. Thank you for today, Mom, for giving me a chance I don't deserve. Everyone deserves a chance to grow. Alex, even you, even me. As I watched him walk away, I felt a sense of completion, not an ending, not exactly, more like turning to a fresh page in a story that had taken an unexpected turn. The next day, I boarded a plane to Tuscany, a trip I had dreamed of for decades but had always put off, always finding reasons why it wasn't the right time, why Alex or work or some other obligation needed me more. As the plane lifted into the clouds, I opened Linda's journal and began to write for 30 years. I believed that a mother's love meant sacrifice without limits. I thought my worth was measured by how much I could give, how much I could endure, how small I could make myself to expand others' happiness. I was wrong. True love, for others and for oneself, requires boundaries. It demands respect flowing both ways. It means being valued for who you are, not just what you provide. I learned this lesson later than I should have, but not too late to change the course of my remaining years. Not too late to teach my son that love without respect is empty. Not too late to discover who Jane is. Beyond the roles of mother, employee, caretaker, they thought they could humiliate me and still enjoy the benefits of my generosity. They were wrong. I wasn't their wallet. I was their wake-up call. And now, finally, I am simply myself, a woman who knows her worth and is no longer afraid to claim it. From the window seat, I watched America recede behind me, growing smaller until it disappeared beneath the vast Atlantic. Ahead lay Italy, adventure, discovery, a life that belonged wholly to me. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt completely, gloriously free. I smiled and closed the journal, tucking it safely into my carry-on. The story wasn't over yet. In fact, perhaps the most interesting chapters were just beginning. 1 year later, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment overlooking the harbor. The morning sun glinted off the water, sailboats bobbing gently in the breeze. After returning from my 3-month European adventure, I had made a series of decisions that once would have seemed unthinkable. I sold my suburban home of 30 years. I retired early from my financial director position. I used the proceeds from selling Mark's lake house to buy this waterfront apartment. I started teaching a photography class at the community center, and I began writing a book, The Cost of Giving Too Much, which, to my continual astonishment, had been picked up by a major publisher after a bidding war. My phone chimed with a text from Alex Lunch next week, the new Thai place downtown. Our relationship had evolved over the past year. Still careful, still bounded by clear expectations, but genuine. He had found a new job, a modest apartment, and even began dating again, this time a kindergarten teacher with a practical nature and kind eyes. Sounds good. Tuesday works for me, I replied. Another text arrived, this one from Maria Jane. Just saw your interview on Morning View. You were brilliant. Call me later. XOXO. I smiled, still bemused by my unexpected public platform. The viral nature of my story had led to speaking engagements, podcast interviews, and now a book, all focused on helping women recognize their worth and establish healthy boundaries. You're not just telling your story, my publisher had said. You're giving voice to millions of women who have silently endured the same exploitation. It was a responsibility I took seriously. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. The delivery I had been expecting, framed prints from my recent photography exhibit, Women of a Certain Age, featuring portraits of vibrant, accomplished women over 60. As I hung the centerpiece photo, a striking black and white self-portrait capturing both my vulnerability and strength, the doorbell rang again. Dr. Roberts stood in the hallway, smiling warmly. Ready for our walk? What had begun as therapy had evolved into friendship after our formal sessions concluded. Now we met weekly for walks along the harbor, discussing everything from philosophy to politics to the challenges of dating in our 60s. Just let me grab my hat, I replied. As we strolled along the waterfront, Eleanor asked about my upcoming book tour. Nervous, I admitted. Excited, still a bit in shock that anyone cares what I have to say. You underestimate the power of truth spoken plainly, she said, especially coming from someone who has lived it. We paused to watch a family feeding the seagulls, a young mother with two small children, laughing as the birds swooped and dived. Do you ever regret it? Eleanor asked quietly. The wedding, the fallout, any of it. I considered the question seriously. No, I said finally. I regret that it was necessary. I regret not setting boundaries earlier, but standing up for myself, never. Good, she nodded, because from where I stand, that decision changed everything, not just for you, but for Alex too. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for those we love is to stop enabling harmful patterns. As we continued our walk, I reflected on the unexpected journey of the past year. What had begun as a moment of humiliation had transformed into a catalyst for change. Not just in my life, but in the lives of women who saw their own struggles reflected in mine. My phone buzzed with another text notification, a photo from a woman in Texas who had written to me months ago, struggling with an entitled son and demanding daughter-in-law. The picture showed her standing proudly in front of a sold sign on her large suburban home. The caption read, "Downsized to a condo I love, using the extra money for the world cruise I've always dreamed of. Thank you for showing me it's never too late to choose myself." I smiled and showed the message to Eleanor. This is why I don't regret anything, I said, because somewhere, women are reclaiming their lives, one boundary at a time. Later that evening, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset paint the harbor in vibrant oranges and pinks. In my lap was the journal Linda had given me, now filled with a year's worth of reflections, insights, and growth. I picked up my pen and wrote one final entry. They thought I would be forgotten, an inconvenient old woman pushed to the margins of their perfect life. Instead, I became a beacon for others searching for courage to stand their ground. They thought my story would end when they dismissed me from their wedding. Instead, it was just beginning. They thought I would fade away in shame and regret. Instead, I stepped fully into the light of my own worth. They thought wrong. I closed the journal with a sense of completion. The past was settled, the present was rich with purpose, and the future stretched before me, open, unwritten, and entirely my own. I wasn't their wallet. I wasn't their doormat. I wasn't defined by what I could give to others. I was Jane Miller, and that was more than enough.